So he's accused of a range of crimes related to the misuse of his platform for criminal activity. But the narrative goes much deeper than this. On the Russian side, Telegram is used extensively for the coordination of the Russian military forces inside Ukraine. Russian military commentators are already reacting with a view that Durov is defecting to the West, and that this is having a flow-on impact into the willingness of Russia to use this platform for propaganda purposes, which it's used extensively for, particularly during recent elections in France and the United Kingdom. So while he's been charged initially, this is a much deeper conversation that has a significant background at the political and military level as well.
Well, authorities in Russia have accused the West of trying to shut down free speech on Telegram. What are your views on that?
I think that's kind of funny that the Russian government would accuse somebody else of shutting down free speech. It's more that it's a resistance to censorship. So you wouldn't necessarily be open to Russian control over mobile phones, but we seem to be more open to Russian control and influence over apps. And so much of what we're seeing on platforms like X and Facebook from Russian disinformation is being coordinated by large Telegram groups. So it's a kind of interconnected problem. The Kremlin claims it's a free speech issue, but realistically, it's more to do with democracies resisting foreign interference. I don't necessarily buy the claim that a dictatorship that simultaneously runs gulags for its own political dissidents has a right to complain about its access to free speech in the West.
Well, which Western nations in particular are annoyed with the platform?
So there is also legislation in the United States which targets authoritarian-controlled social media. That's been mostly discussed so far through the lens of TikTok, but it was written in such a way that it likely also intends to be applied to platforms like WeChat and Telegram. And so if you're Durov and you're looking down the barrel of significant European Union regulation, you're looking at a potential congressional ban on your application, and you're also looking at a increasingly bad situation for the Russian war effort, it might be time to cut a deal. And so that'll be what the Russians are most concerned about, is that they'll lose control of the platform, that their back-end encryption that it uses would be, that Western law enforcement agencies would be given access to that, and that Ukrainian intelligence planners might be able to access the coordination efforts that are being done on Telegram by Russian forces. So so you can see the degree to which the Ukrainians don't trust this. Sergei Dimitruk, the director of the National Security Defense Council in Ukraine for cybersecurity, put out a statement yesterday saying that the FSB links between Telegram and the Russian government were well established to the satisfaction of Ukrainian intelligence, and that this would send Russia into a panic, and that he's been very careful to make sure that Ukrainian forces operating in and around Kursk were not using Telegram for their coordination, so as not to give the Russians the ability to eavesdrop them with whatever access they may have to the platform.
So you've mentioned a couple of various scenarios. What do you think will likely happen now to Telegram and Pavel Durov, or won't happen?
I think he's likely to try and cut a deal. He wouldn't have flown directly to France, directly into the hands of prosecutors, likely without knowing that he was in for something. So this would have been some time in the making. We're still a long way from understanding all the facts of the case, but I think it's in his interest now to do a deal with democratic governments, which he's also a citizen of France, for example, to come to some arrangement where he can become a normal tech CEO and founder, more in line with Zuckerberg. There's still issues on Facebook, obviously, but it's not controlled by Vladimir Putin, and that is the biggest concern about Telegram.
Rob Porter, thank you so much for joining The World tonight. Really appreciate talking to you.
Thank you for having me.